Who are the very early standouts so far in spring training for the Marlins? I'm going to tell you on today's show.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. You could find me at Jeremiah Geiger2 over on X. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a like, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. The way I've divided this in terms of who are my standouts is by position group, hitters and pitchers, right there. We're going to start off with the hitters. Who has shown me so far in the first few games of spring training that there could be something there and that the Marlins definitely shouldn't overlook them, whether it's a top-ranked prospect or it's a minor league free agent? I have both of them. The first name I'm going to bring up is Heriberto Hernandez. Heriberto Hernandez comes over from Tampa Bay's organization on a minor league free agent deal. He's been in the minors for a while. He has a lot of power. He's had a couple 20-plus home run seasons in the minors, but he has a big strikeout problem. So I think that's the main thing keeping him back from a major league contract and ultimately debuting in the big leagues up to this point. But he gets a chance as a non-roster invitee, and he's making the most of it so far. 3 for 5. He had a bases clearing double, 4 RBIs, and 2 walks. So Heriberto Hernandez is somebody, when you look at the outfield and the competition that's going on, he's definitely not a favorite to make the opening day roster. But if he continues this hot streak to start spring training and he prolongs this another week, another 2 weeks, and keeps building upon it, then he's going to force the Marlins to make a decision regarding him, especially if he limits the strikeouts, which has been his Achilles heel throughout his minor league career. But you see the raw power. You see the potential throughout the minors. It's all about putting it together, cutting down on those strikeout numbers. The Marlins have guys like that who are battling for a starting job. Griffin Conine, career minor leaguer up till just about the end of last season. For the final month, comes up, performs well in his audition, but he struggled immensely with strikeouts. So Heriberto Hernandez kind of fits that mold, that profile, as a strikeout-heavy hitter with a lot of pop. So I'm glad to see what he's done so far. I want him to continue it. The second guy, Joe Mack. Joe Mack is one of the top prospects in the Marlins system, somebody I feel like can eventually become the Marlins franchise catcher. That's how highly I think of him, and it's an all-encompassing factor when it comes to Joe Mack. His defense has been rated very strongly. He's got a strong arm. The hit tool was probably the biggest question surrounding his growth as a prospect. Last year, the power shows up in a big way, and he comes into spring training for the first time, and so far so good. He's had 3 hits. He's had a double. He's had an RBI, a game-winning RBI. And you see that hit tool. He's already got multi-hits. If that hit tool can increase, feel really good about him as a Marlins fan heading into this season. Because Joe Mack is somebody who really is a beacon of hope at the position. We don't know how the organization is going to handle Augustin Ramirez, and ultimately, if they do decide to move him off of catcher, Joe Mack is right in line. Currently occupied by Nick Fortes, Liam Hicks, most likely will make the major league roster. Otherwise, they'll have to send him back to Detroit because he was a Rule 5 draft pick. But Joe Mack is waiting in the wings. And early on, it's very impressive to see that production. You don't see a ton of catchers in Major League Baseball who are going to have a super impressive hit tool. So even if the hit tool and the contact is below average, but that power is still there and he's still ripping extra base hits, I'm going to feel good about Joe Mack. Really like what I've seen from him. Third guy, Max Acosta. Let's talk about Max Acosta. Comes over in the offseason in the Jake Berger trade. He's a middle infield guy. A lot of people project him to move to second base. Can he stick at shortstop? And so far, so good with his defense. I think his defense is looking really good, where he could ultimately stick at shortstop, which would be huge for the Marlins. That's another guy who, if you feel confident about his defense moving forward, then that's just a positive, because the bat, I think, is coming along very nicely. He made some adjustments in the second half of last season in the minor leagues. He comes to spring training, and so far he's got a couple hits and hit an absolute bomb of a home run. So to see that power uptick, and hopefully that's not just a blip on the radar. That's something that he's finding and growing into, and somebody who I believe the Marlins, you could see Max Acosta debut this season. I really think that highly of him. I'm becoming very quickly a Max Acosta believer as to him staying at shortstop and as to his bat being potentially above average moving forward. So again, very early on, but again, a mammoth of a home run, absolute bomb. You love to see that from a guy newly acquired, somebody new in the system. And the final hitter I'm going to talk about right now is Matt Mervis. Matt Mervis comes over from Chicago, minor league guy who struggled when given an opportunity in the big leagues. So this is a real change of scenery for him, and it's a fresh start. And so far, he's making the most of it. He will ultimately, I believe, make the opening day roster as the first baseman, splitting time with Jonah Bride in a platoon right there. It just makes sense. Bride's a righty, Mervis is a lefty. You bring him in, he's on the 40-man. He's somebody with a lot of pop, which you love to see. He's already hit a home run this spring at 109 miles an hour. So the exit velocity is there, and he's had 3 hits. So if he can continue to show up in spring training and produce, that all but guarantees Matt Mervis will be on the major league roster, the opening day roster, when they face the Pittsburgh Pirates. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the pitching side. Who stands out to me on the pitching side of things? That's going to come up right after this. And of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I miss FanDuel ads. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You will love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, you'll never feel like you miss your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're an everyday listener to Locked On Marlins, thank you for being a part of the Locked On Marlins crew. And if this is your first episode, of course, welcome in, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more episodes. We are talking about the biggest standouts so far very early on in Marlins spring training. We talked about the hitters in the first segment. This next segment will be about the pitching staff. Who stands out to me? I want to remind you that this episode is a mailbag episode. And I want to thank Did Miami Marlins Flip the M today for the question. Who are you most impressed with so far early in spring? It got me thinking, had to come up with a list. So shout out to Did Miami Marlins Flip the M today for the question. Always appreciate the questions, guys. Keep them coming in, and I will do my best to answer each and every one of them. The pitching staff for me, I have a few names. Just 3 guys I want to talk about so far. I've talked about Robbie Snelling on yesterday's show and how I'm impressed with the velocity jump. But I wanted to start out by discussing Max Meyer. Max Meyer, former 3rd overall pick, comes into this spring training with a lot of hype surrounding him. I hear he's added a sweeper. I hear he's added a sinker. Okay, I could not wait to see the pitch data when it came to Max Meyer. And he only had 1 inning of work, and I can't wait already to see his next outing. But the fastball, which was a problem for him in the major leagues, the velocity just wasn't there. It wasn't what it used to be. It was flat. It wasn't moving well. There was no life to it. Essentially, it was just a dead pitch that hitters at the major league level are going to crush. And when you factor in that he only has a slider that he can rely on, Max Meyer wasn't consistent, and he couldn't get in a rhythm at all last season in the big leagues. So going into this season, when you're adding pitches, you're adding to your repertoire, and you really want to hone in on your fastball as well, because everything starts and ends with that pitch. If you're a starter, your different varieties of the pitch. If you want to go a cutter, if you want to go the sinker. So you have to keep tweaking at that pitch so you can come at and attack these major league hitters. And through his first start, I thought the fastball characteristics looked really good. He lowered his release point. So that's always a positive right off the bat. The vertical approach angle, it still was about 4.9, which is just about where he was last season, but lowering the release point, you obviously have the velocity jump, and then you factor in that he's locating it well. If he can hit 96, 97 and continue to locate moving forward, then that's going to be fine. That will play. I noticed he changed his arm slot just a little bit. Last year, averaging 46-degree arm slot. So he's kind of higher up there in terms of his arm slot and release point, lowers the release point, average about 39 degrees now. And so I think that's going to help him with the fastball, with the deception, and everything will play off of that. The sweeper that he's adding is going to continue to grow as a pitch. Only threw it 1 time, I believe, in his outing, but it's something that he's going to continue to get more comfortable with because his slider is just as deadly as ever. It's absolutely nasty. So Max Meyer, can't wait for his second start, but he's definitely somebody that I'm keeping an eye on for the rest of spring training as he ultimately battles for that 5th and final spot, most likely. Valente Beozo is also battling for that 5th spot. If I had to guess right now, Max Meyer would be the 5th starter. Beozo starts out in AAA. But Beozo, he's not letting up. He's not going to just keel over and let the Marlins make this an easy decision. Because so far, I've really liked what I've seen. The velocity has taken a step up. Last year, sitting 89 miles an hour, he's could not afford to miss at all. He had to be perfect with commanding the fastball. Otherwise, again, the major league hitters are going to crush that. So to see the velocity jump in his first start when he is averaging 92, a full 3 ticks harder, and then his second outing today, or rather, yes, his second outing when he pitched 2 innings, he's sitting low 90s, averaging 90.9, so we'll call it 91 on the fastball, but it's still an uptick in velocity. And it's something that I want to see, again, consistency with. It's all about consistency with a pitcher like Beozo. Just maintain velocity as best as you can, continue to hit your spots. But so far, so good. The final pitcher, Adam Mazur. Adam Mazur trusts in his secondaries. He is going to throw a lot of pitches at you. But the one aspect that is so great to see from Adam Mazur, and it's such a relief to see, is his command is impeccable. I talked about this in yesterday's show. If you can command your stuff and then work on the details and perfect the details, and so your location becomes that much more better, but you're already not walking guys, that's a positive. He's working on a sweeper. That's a pitch designed to go more horizontal, to break horizontally, while his slider, which is already a plus pitch, so the gyro slider, is a more tight, not as horizontal, more downward type of break. So if he can factor in a sweeper to pair with his slider, which is already a really good pitch, and then again, the fastball, can he maintain that location, locate it well? It will sit mid-90s. I believe so far in his first 2 outings, the vertical break, the induced vertical break on it was high 16s, so 16.8 inches of induced vertical break. That's not terrible. That's not bad at all. We'll take that. Consistency with the fastball, trust in the secondaries. He's already showing a ton of trust in it. 3 strikeouts today. 1 on a slider, 1 on a curve, and 1 on a really firm changeup. So impressive stuff so far with Adam Mazur, another guy who's battling for that rotational spot, and you will see here up in Miami. At some point, these Marlins, record or not, are going to find out what they have. Whether they're losing and they're 20 games under 500, if they're 5 games under 500, if they're winning. I like what I'm seeing so far in spring training. I like the competitiveness from all these guys going out and battling win or lose in spring training. Clayton McCullough is a first-time manager. There's a lot of decisions to be made regarding the future of this team, going back to the front office. So these spring training competitions, whether it's for the positions like the outfield I was talking about, that's a huge competition right there. It's tough to make these decisions. It's going to be tough to tell a guy like Adam Mazur or Valente Beozo, if they continue dealing in spring training, hey, you're probably going to start off in AAA, but we'll see you eventually. That's the business side of baseball. Coming up next, who realistically has a shot to make the major leagues? Who do I think has a shot to make the major leagues? It's a mailbag question. I'm going to get to that right after this. Thank you guys for listening to Locked On Marlins for your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, be sure to check out Locked On MLB. And we are discussing on today's show the early standouts. I'm opening up the mailbag every Friday as usual. I have a really good question here from Marco Castillo. Shout out, Marco. Thank you for the question. Which prospects in camp have the best shot at cracking the opening 26-man roster? So this is a tough question because let's just go through position by position. We'll start at catcher. It's going to be Nick Fortes. He'll be the starter. And barring a crazy surprise, Liam Hicks will be the backup. I think that's clear. First base, I do think, is going to be Jonah Bride and Matt Mervis splitting time at first. You could see one of them play first while the other is in the DH role. But I think so far it's looking good for Mervis. And of course, Bride has a spot on the 26 man. He's a lock. We go to second base. The Marlins have a lot of infield depth that's coming up through the system. A lot of guys on their way to debuting in Miami. It just might not be right now. Although I talked about Max Acosta, and he's impressing a lot of people. I don't know if Acosta is going to break camp with the team. You look at second base, Otto Lopez is there. Otto Lopez was a productive player last season. Over 2 WAR. Really good defense in that season. Can he continue it for a second season? Is the bat going to stay above average over an entire season? So Otto Lopez is penciled in as the starter, but this sophomore season, coming off the rookie year, there's going to be a lot of players behind him ready to take his spot. I don't think that happens out of spring training. They're not going to suddenly say, okay, Otto, you're not starting right off the bat. So Otto Lopez at second. Xavier Edwards, he's a lock at shortstop. I've said before, I don't know if Xavier Edwards is going to stick at shortstop in the long run. I don't think he should, but with a healthy shoulder and his contact skills and his speed on the bases and stolen bases, he is an absolute lock. Third base, Connor Norby, absolute lock. So the infield is kind of set right now. There's not going to be somebody that comes up and starts. Now, for the backup roles, that's where we're going to have things get interesting. I think in center field right now, Dane Myers and Jesus Sanchez. Well, Jesus Sanchez is a lock. Dane Myers, Derek Hill, both those guys, if I had to guess, would make the major league roster. Left field looks to be a two-man competition right now. Griffin Conine and Kyle Stowers, both of whom left-handers. And you look at Jesus Sanchez, left-handed hitter, struggles against lefties. So you're going to want an outfielder who can platoon with Jesus Sanchez, who can give Stowers or Conine a break against those left-handers. That's why I think Derek Hill could have a role on this team. Personally, I wasn't in favor of Derek Hill honestly making the 26-man roster. That might be unpopular. Part of it was the fact of Victor Mesa Jr. Part of it is also the fact that Troy Johnston is an NRI and is listed as an outfielder. So you have a lot of outfield depth. But Victor Mesa Jr. goes down. He's injured for the majority of Grapefruit League games. I want to see Troy Johnston get some more at-bats, honestly. I really think this is the year in which he deserves an opportunity. I mean, I thought that last season, but this year, without a shadow of a doubt, he deserves that opportunity. So that's why I felt like Derek Hill, it's like, you played for 3 teams last year. I don't know if I'd rather have you or I'd rather have Troy Johnston or Victor Mesa Jr., but Mesa Jr.'s out now. Sanoha is another guy I wanted and would have preferred to see because of his youth. And I really liked what I saw out of him in the minors. The best contact skills, doesn't strike out at all. And at being so young, again, he could carve out a role on this team moving forward, whereas Derek Hill is an expendable player. But let's just say Hill makes the roster, Myers makes the roster, Sanchez and Conine, Stowers, one of them wins that job. Let's say Stowers. So do you put Conine on the bench? Like realistically, who are the actual prospects who are going to have a shot? I don't know what the Marlins are going to do with Troy Johnson in the long run. I want him to continue to hit in order to force their hand. If he continues to get on base and continues to hit at a clip that he can, which I know he can. I mean, 2 years ago, the dude had over 100 RBIs, 20 plus home runs, 300 batting average. He's a really good hitter. I want Troy Johnston to force their hand. With going back to the infield, I think Max Acosta isn't ready just yet, but he will be soon. And then the biggest wild card, the two wild cards, Davison De Los Santos and Augustin Ramirez. The Marlins are making a lot of promotional videos on their social media account featuring Davison De Los Santos. And I don't know if that is foreshadowing of something. I remember one just a couple days ago of him promoting opening day. Opening day is 30 days away or whatnot. Well, if De Los Santos isn't somebody who you're actively trying to get on the major league roster for opening day, then why would you make those videos? I get it. He's one of the more popular prospects in the Marlins system. He has all the power, but that could be a little bit of foreshadowing. Perhaps I'm just looking into it too much. De Los Santos, for me, I want to see him cut down on the chase. He's got to not swing at everything. One of his at-bats this spring training, just an ugly swing at a fastball, looked like 2 feet above the zone. Like that can't happen. But De Los Santos, does he have a shot to make the roster? Right now, yeah. Yeah, he does. I don't think I would be totally surprised if he cracks the roster. Because you have to make decisions as an organization internally, and the fans and media, they're not always going to suspect these decisions. There's always going to be a surprise on the roster or a decision or a trade. So with De Los Santos, would it help him to work out his issues in AAA? Yes. Could I see him start off in the major leagues this season? If they feel comfortable about it, I could see that happen. Augustin Ramirez, does he have a shot to make the roster? Right now, the bat is ready. Augustin Ramirez, his hit tool and everything he brings in the box is outstanding. You could plug him into a lineup right now, and I think he'll succeed. But what I think the Marlins are doing is they're waiting for him to develop at catcher, and they're going to give him as long as they possibly can to try to stick there. Whether I think he will or not, that's clear what the organization is doing right now. So for Augustin Ramirez, I think he gets his reps in AAA. I don't think he has a shot to make the roster. Joe Mack, he's going to start off probably in AAA, get some more time, get some more ABs, but this is a great experience for him. On the pitching side, are there any prospects that really stand out that could realistically have a shot? Probably some bullpen guys. And that's just because of the Marlins and how volatile the bullpen can be. They have guys with strikeout stuff who are getting experience. Josh Eknes is a guy. He's a little bit younger, though, in terms of development. But I mentioned Dale Stanovich. I want to see more innings out of him. he could be a surprise guy, as the Marlins only have Andrew Nardi and Anthony Veneziano as the left-handers right now. So we'll see with how Nardi continues to get better, and if he's healthy for opening day. Could a guy like Josh Simpson make the roster? I don't know. But the exciting top name prospects that are often brought up by the fan base, I don't know if you necessarily even want to see them debut as soon as possible. You don't want to see De Los Santos debut and then immediately get sent down by because he can't stop swinging. So my advice is, whatever happens moving forward, understand that in a rebuilding season, patience is okay. Taking time to develop these players is completely fine. But the best shot, I think, right now is De Los Santos. Just because, I don't know, I have this feeling with the promotional videos they keep putting out, maybe they internally have already made the decision. So we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Marlins. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And until then, stay safe and let's go fish.